Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Troy Durst, take your seat. Hi, everyone. Happy NeoCon Monday morning. Hope everybody had a great entree to NeoCon, Saturday night, Sunday night. Now it's Monday. I'm Cheryl Durst. I'm the Executive Vice President and CEO of IIDA, the International Interior Design Association. I'm very honored to welcome you all this morning. We think a lot about time and design, and there are all these great phrases that employ time. Daytime, nighttime, part-time, full-time, time flies, time after time, time is money, turn back the hands of time. Literally, time is the currency of design. And it's crucial to how this industry moves. Time is the marker between now and next. And our keynote speaker this morning is most expert in next. World-renowned futurist Amy Webb is the founder and CEO of the Future Today Institute, a leading foresight and strategy firm that helps leaders and organizations prepare for complex futures. In her work with the Future Today Institute, Amy is a trusted advisor to the world's most admired companies, brands, organizations, and individuals. She has led foresight with the senior leadership of central banks and intergovernmental organizations. Please, Amy, we need more of you doing that. She's pioneered data-driven, technology-led Foresight Methodology that has been implemented by hundreds of organizations to power their own growth. Amy is a professor of strategic foresight at New York University Stern School of Business, where she developed and teaches future-focused MBA-level courses and is also a visiting fellow at Oxford University's Säid School of Business. She has been recognized by Poets as one of the most impactful business professors in the world. Her influence can be felt in policy, government, and the entertainment industry. She collaborates closely with Hollywood's leading writers and producers to ensure the most accurate depiction of science, technology, and the future in blockbuster films and widely recognized television shows and commercials. Prior to founding the Future Today Institute in 2005, Amy began her career as a journalist, first covering technology and economics for the Wall Street Journal while based in Hong Kong, and later relocating to Tokyo to report on emerging technologies for Newsweek. Please join me in welcoming Amy Webb.
Good morning, everybody. Would you mind starting the timer? Whoever's in charge of the timer. Thank you. Okay. I was thinking about all of you yesterday. I mean, I was thinking about you because I obviously had to write the speech. But I was specifically thinking about you yesterday while I was in this bathroom. It's a good thing, but this bathroom, so I was at the airport, and I was on my way here. This is what I normally carry. It's an international-sized suitcase, hardcover suitcase, totally allowable on European airlines. For those of you who travel a lot, you know what I'm talking about. They can't say no to this suitcase. And my backpack is full of gear and stuff, but like this is it. So it's not that much stuff. So this was a really fun experience, trying to get in and out. So I'm thinking about you, trying to get in and out of this bathroom stall. The doors opened into the stall, which meant there wasn't enough clearance for both my body and my carry-on stuff. And then once I was in, I could not get out. I am fairly flexible. I can really lift my legs, and I could not get out without touching the toilet. And as I was thinking about you, I actually asked a stranger. I had to ask two people to take a picture of me because the first person was like, I'm going to pass. And the second person thought that I was punking her. Anyways, To get this photo, I am like millimeters away from a toilet seat. But I thought it was worth it. I thought it was worth it because this demonstrates a pretty big problem. Now, I'm a frequent flyer. I'm at an airport basically every other day. I just want to get in and out. I am not an anxious traveler. I'm not nervous. I've got my stuff locked down. But think about the people who are nervous flyers, or who are on their own, or who are feeling anxious. Like this, trying to just get in and out of a bathroom stall is compounding those already sort of nervous feelings. And so I was thinking, why is this so bad? Like, why is my experience so absolutely painfully awful? Why would anybody design such a cockamamie space? Why? And I get it, right? I know the easy answer here is cost. You're trying to maximize the number of stalls, minimize the number of features. I get all the Excel spreadsheet stuff. And also bathrooms are non-revenue generating. So like, I get that. But I actually think there's a different reason that explains how we got to right now. And it's Southwest Airlines. We've got to get Southwest Airlines. Anybody from Southwest? And don't raise your hand at this point because we all just mocked you. So here's the issue. Southwest Airlines for many, many years was a teeny tiny little airline in Texas that literally nobody had heard of before. And at that point, the big prestigious airlines were American Airlines and Delta and United, but Continental, remember them? Way back time. US Airways, Northwest. So these were the big flagship American airline corporations. And everybody just assumed that that was going to be the future going forward. Nobody paid any attention to this weird looking sort of poopy colored airline. And in 1998, Southwest opened a new pilot base where I was. So I flew out of BWI in Baltimore. And in 1998, they decided to open up a Southwest Airlines pilot base, and it was one of the first big expansions outside of Texas. It was going to bring 200 jobs to the city, and as a result of all of this, BWI was going to need a new hub. So this is what it looked like back then. Ultimately, this was going to mean a lot more flights. Southwest was starting to become popular, and that was happening faster than a lot of people expected, so that by 2001, Southwest was the fastest growing airline in all of North America. So they needed a solution fast. BWI was like, come here, we're going to help you out. And that's what happened. There was a 5-year, $1.8 billion expansion, which included 2 new terminals, one of which I was standing in the middle of in that bathroom. So that's how that bathroom came to be, having a terrible experience. Now, at the point where they're making decisions, the world was starting to change. I mean, the world is always changing, but there were plenty of signals that they might have considered when designing this future passenger experience. In 2003, most passengers were still checking their bags. So when they went into the restroom, the teeny tiny little space with not very much clearance, once you open up the door, was not a big idea because most people weren't carrying so much stuff with them. They maybe had like a handbag or a briefcase with a book or a magazine, maybe some files for work, but that was it for the majority of passengers. Also, at this point in time, flights were still pretty expensive. So the average person wasn't hopping on a super cheapo flight, to go away for the weekend. That just wasn't part of American culture. But there were ample signals at this point telling BWI that the future of travel was probably going to look different in ways that were both pretty insignificant but also fairly profound, and that was going to dramatically change the passenger experience and how people experienced the space that they were in. Consumer trends, for example. Consumer trends in travel were changing. Once Southwest changed from being a local business hub for people in Texas to an affordable airline, basically a flying bus, that you could change tickets without change fees and anything else like that, that business model helped usher in a completely different way of traveling in this country. And the people making design decisions should have known that. They should have seen that they should have factored in this new business model, this new approach. And demand was going to spike as a result. People were also starting to live longer at this point. This is 20 years ago, but already there were profound differences, which meant a higher probability of people being in an airport that needed wheelchairs going forward. And personal technology. So laptops, portable games were becoming more affordable. We're moving from the fringe to the mainstream. Within 5 years of those signals, there were new knock-on effects. Apple introduced this machine, this MacBook Air. It was cheaper, it was lighter, it was portable. But generally, laptops were now everywhere. Chromebooks were a couple $100, and the average American had the ability to have these devices and travel with them, both for work and for fun. But laptops are small, but you need chargers. You got to carry the stuff that goes with them, the cords, the power bricks, right? Which tended to be big, not to mention the cords and the power bricks and everything else for your phones, which means that those backpacks and briefcases suddenly had to hold a bunch more stuff in them. And then another big thing happened, and that is the big airlines that everybody thought would be around forever started struggling. Nobody could envision a future in which Continental Airlines and US Airways weren't the big behemoths anymore. In 2008, as the airlines were really struggling, American Airlines made a very controversial decision, and that was to start charging for checked bags. So this is the first time anybody did this. You had to pay $15 for the first bag and $25 for the second bag, which meant that people were starting to do everything they could to avoid checking their bags. All of those signals told us, if you had started tracking them in 1998, that the future of the passenger experience was going to be very different in the 2020s, that it would look different in the 2020s than it did in the 1990s. Suitcases, handbags, stuffed with electronics and peripherals, people shoving as much as they possibly could into their bags so they didn't have to check them. Sometimes bonus handbags. This is none of you because you are all awesome people, but we all know the people who have the big bag and the second bag and then the bag that's somehow attached to their hip and the shopping bag and all that stuff tries to get on the plane. And that's not including winter coats, which also need a place to go. So this is a lot of stuff to move through the airport with. And it's challenging when the airport is really, really crowded. What happened? BWI assumed in 1998 that the passenger experience would be the same in the year 2023. That people would always check their bags, they would always board planes light without too much stuff, and that the biggest airlines would always be on top. That was a bold choice for the people involved in that project to be making. So I call this the bathroom problem. And the bathroom problem, I realized, in this bathroom, is analogous to all design projects, all decisions throughout the entire field of design. You have to collect signals from outside of the places where you would normally look, outside of basic consumer trends, outside of design trends. You have to think through places and spaces and people and purpose going forward. You can't predict exactly what people will do in the future, but you can extrapolate using a wide array of signals in the present to try to anticipate how tomorrow might look different than today. You just have to pay a different type of attention in the present. The way that you overcome the bathroom problem, and I'm realizing that this is teeny tiny for those of you sitting in the back. The good news is I created a digital swag bag for you, so that you're going to get at the end. All of this is in it. But this is how you overcome the bathroom problem. You have to start looking for signals outside of where you would normally look. This wheel is what we call our 11 sources of change. And anytime I am looking for any one of our clients for signals and trends, I am intentionally looking at the future through these 11 lenses. So on the very outside of the ring are things like wealth distribution, education, the environment, demographics, geopolitics, government. You might ask, standing in the middle of a BWI bathroom, why should signals coming from government matter? And the answer is because procurement, right? Because people are going to be making decisions based on that going forward, because this is not a revenue-generating part of infrastructure. So you have to methodically look at what's coming out of those places, intersecting with technology. You look for signals, and then we use a process of pattern recognition to model trends. Even without the pattern recognition, if you take nothing else away from today, because I am an outsider, I am not part of your community, the value that I bring to you is that I am not part of your community. I am an outsider looking in. And the best thing that you could do for yourselves is to allow yourselves to also be that outsider. If you use something like what I'm showing you, you force yourself to look through these different areas of change, allow yourself to be that outsider looking in, you will start to see differences that can help you generate and create better futures. You, designers, whether or not you like it or want it to be this way or realize it, you are futurists. You are literally building the future world in which people inhabit. Decisions that you make in the present have a dramatic impact on how we work, how productive we are, how happy we are. Bathrooms are one thing, but consider the impact that you have on company culture. If you've got a client or yourself, you advocate for an open office concept, like modular desks and things like that, this might dramatically increase productivity and creativity, or it could tank it. If you're dealing with a CEO of a company who's an extrovert, they may think this is the greatest thing ever and this is the best possible thing for their staff. But it could be oppressive for the rest of the folks on the team who may be more introverted. On the other hand, a quiet, traditional, glass office environment may work really well for some people, but it may crush those opportunities to be creative in the moment, and it might crush those opportunities for serendipity. Decisions that you make, for those of you who work in the hospital and healthcare space, decisions that you make about how to design hospitals, which, to be fair, there's a lot of functionality and safety and other regulatory things to consider, but you have to balance between what is safety and functional and what's comfortable, because there's plenty of research showing that patient outcomes are better, when they're in different types of spaces, that their ability to heal, their emotional state, all of those things are impacted not by the medications going in them, but by the experiences that they're having when they're trying to heal. You have more direct and indirect control of your own futures and the world of design than I think you realize, which means you have more power than you realize. Much of that power is invisible, but you are the most important people, I think, where decisions are being made. You're in some ways more important than everybody else, whether you're designing offices for Fortune 100s or the office chairs for the people who are sitting in those spaces. But if you'll allow me, when I talk to some of you, I am not hearing unbridled enthusiasm about the future. I am hearing something that goes a little bit more like, oh, it's not empowerment. It's not excitement. Your heads are in the gutters. I would never put a bad word up here. It is this, oh, FUD, okay? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt about the futures. What if people don't return to work? What are we going to do? What if school goes virtual? Then what happens next? What if design is just a commodity in the future and we don't matter anymore? What if clients just use generative AI because they want everything faster and cheaper? It's good for you to be asking what-if questions. It's a form of rehearsing plausible futures. But when I meet with executives in your industry, FUD is driving the conversation. And that's not what I want for you, because that means that you've, in a way, sort of given up on the influence you can have on the future. You have more leverage than you know. So I need you to use that leverage, because if you don't advocate for people and the spaces that we inhabit, nobody will. That's why I'm here. I hate airport bathrooms, but mostly because designers have FUD, and I think that FUD can go fuck itself. Now there I did say a bad word. So that'll be the only one. I'm lying. It might happen again. I believe in you, and I think there is work to be done. So let's get to it. Hi, I'm Amy Webb. It's nice to meet everybody. I had to get that out of my system first. So just 3 quick things. You heard Cheryl give you my background. I'm the chief executive officer of a company called Future Today Institute. We work in an area called strategic foresight. And so basically, that is doing a little bit of what I just did for you in real time. What are the signals influencing the future? From that, what are the sort of general future worlds that may exist? And then finally, what are the strategies to help an organization succeed? So that's it. There's no super brainstorming. There's no, consulting an oracle. A lot of this work is pretty boring. We do quantitative and qualitative research. We build models, and we do the best that we can trying to extrapolate, given what we can know to be true in the present, what might be in the future. The job is not about making predictions. There is no way to predict exact futures. The math doesn't work. This is not about predictions. It's about preparation, trying to make sure that we are prepared as the world around us changes. In other words, what are the signals and trends that you should be paying attention to? What are the big macro scenarios describing the world as it may be? And finally, what are the strategic scenarios? Where can you play and where can you win? We do this on behalf of organizations all around the world. We work in many different spaces, and we work with all different types of companies. I'm here today with they're right here, 2 of my colleagues. You're actually going to hear from Mark on a panel after this. He leads our design and built environment verticals. He's a member of IADA and has been coming to this conference, I think, forever. And then Melanie is our managing director, who has nothing to do with design, but looks awesome today. So anyhow, we work across all different areas. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, as you heard, I developed and teach this course along with Mark and Melanie at NYU Stern School of Business. We're trying to open up the pipeline for people who are trained and really know how to do this work. And the last thing is really about you. So this session is meant to be participatory. We're going to kick off with a little exercise we're going to do together, but I need you to plug in. This is not like one of these keynotes where I'm going to be talking at you. That's why I asked them to turn the lights up a little bit. And for those of you doing the live stream at home, same deal. We are having a moment here together where we have an opportunity to change our perspectives and do better things going forward. So for that reason, you're going to hear me ask you a lot, what if? And we don't have time to give answers. But I actually want you to do that with me. And I'll be able to tell that, because I can see you, that's happening, all right? If I go through something and you're like, you've lost me, I totally don't get it, don't save it for the Q&A. Shout it out. I'll repeat it so that we can make sure that the session is productive. Because I don't want you to leave here feeling inspired. Inspiration is fine, but that doesn't lead to action. I want you to leave here feeling fired up and prepared to tackle the future in a way that you haven't before. So can we all agree that that's our plan together? Yes? Awesome. So then let's get started. I am going to start with a quick warm-up activity that involves me hacking your brain a little bit. So that is for real. We're gonna do an activity together that will actually alter a neural pathway. It will not hurt, but it will be a real thing. All right, I'm gonna show you an image. And once you see this image, you will see something in it. It's a little bit like a Rorschach test. So people always see different things. I cannot wait to hear what you see, because I'm starting to gather data on this, and like any finance bros? I'm about to make fun of you. Okay. One person in the back was. The finance bros tend to see like bizarre, like usually one type of thing. Different groups of people see different things in this. Anyhow, I'm going to show it to you. See what you see. And then I'm actually going to show you what it is. And after I show it to you, for the rest of your life, anytime you see this thing again, you will always see it. And that's the rewiring your brain part. All right, ready? Here we go. So take a look. See if you can figure out, there's a hidden picture in here. So I'm going to ask you to shout out what you think you see. Anybody? Just shout it when you're ready, and I'll repeat it. Skull, cow, man, map, Map. Black cat. A turtle. That's the first. Who said turtle? It's the first time I've ever gotten turtle. That's awesome.
Yeah, I say a shoe print.
A shoe print. I love it. This is what I'm saying. Like, you guys see all kinds of crazy stuff that nobody else sees. Anybody else? A bra. Now, I appreciate you, but I feel like now you guys are just trying to one-up each other. Okay, this is a picture of a cow. So for those of you who saw the cow, awesome. For those of you, or a skull, you're right. So I'm going to show you it, and after I show this to you, you won't be able to unsee it again. All right, here we go. Here's the mouth. There's the eyes. Whoop, and there's something that happened very quickly. I'll go back. There we go. Here's the skull. Whole face. All right, now I'm going to take it away, and you should still be able to see it. Yeah? And because you are all fancy design people who are very creative, you should still be able to see it upside down. Yes, just say yes, you can. Okay, so this is not my cow. This was actually part of an experimental research project from a psychologist named Carl Dallenbach in the 1950s. And so therefore, this thing is called Dallenbach's cow. And there's a reason that most people struggle to see what's there at the beginning. And if I hadn't sort of started this whole preamble and I had just shown it to you, you wouldn't have been investigating what might be there. You would have just been like, I don't know, this doesn't make sense. Leave me alone. I've got other stuff to do. So here's what's happening. The reason that our brain doesn't immediately plug in to try to investigate what's there is because it's just raw sensory data. We can't see a pattern. And because we can't see a pattern, we start to focus in on the stuff that pops out, the stuff that's obvious. Those are the big black splotches, which is why a lot of people see a map, because to some people, those look like they might be countries. Some people, I've gotten shoe print before, so some people think maybe this was a print somewhere. Turtle, I am fascinated. We'll find each other afterwards. I want to know what happened right there. So what's happening is we focus on the dark spots. And in order to see what's actually in the picture, you need everything else. You need the context. That's the white spaces. And because this information doesn't fit an existing pattern, we just sort of ignore it. What's interesting now is that nothing has changed in the past 3 minutes. The facts are the same. The data are the same. The only thing that's different now is your perception of what was there. So together, we just unlocked a very powerful ability, in fact, one that is required of leaders going forward, and that is reperception, which is the ability that you can hone and practice to make sense of what's there, to see the bigger picture and not laser focus in on the obvious stuff, which tends to be a distraction. You're going to hear me talk a lot about this in a moment, but all this stuff with ChatGPT, guess what? That's a dark spot. People are missing what the bigger picture is. And I could go through in many, many, many different ways. So I see a lot of you nodding, but now let's figure out a way to take action. So what if we use this newfound skill of reperception and we reperceived the futures of design? And I'm using the word futures because there is no single future. The future arrives as a result of decisions that we make in the present. To do that, what I'm going to ask you to do with me is to do exploration of those white spaces. Let's ask what if over and over and over again. I'm going to ask you. I want you to think it through. If you start seeing things, I want you to also ask yourself what if. Okay, that's how we're going to do this going forward. So we're going to do a reperception exercise looking through 3 sets of trends. Again, I am outside your field. So what I have done is curated trends that I know are areas that you're not really looking at least not in a meaningful way right now. And I'm going to give you my outside perspective on how I think this influences your futures. I created this map using that tool, that wheel that I showed you earlier. So there are 3 sets of trends. The first has to do with biology. The second has to do with experiential technologies. And the third has to do with everybody's best friend, ChatGPT, and other areas of AI. So let's start with biology. And within this sort of big area of biology, bioengineering is the thing that's going to matter to you going forward. Specifically, something called synthetic biology, which combines artificial intelligence, engineering, design, and computer science with biology. So the idea here is we can design or redesign organisms as small as molecules to have new or better purposes for a whole host of different reasons. And ultimately what that means is we can now edit and write biological code the way that we might edit and write biological code on a computer. Normal code, computer code on a computer. So if that's true, what might we make going forward? Let me show you one quick example. This is a set of skis. Does anybody ski in here? A lot of you do. So you know that you want hard, durable skis, otherwise you go crash down the mountain. These skis have been made out of bioengineered algae. Algae, which you don't normally think of as a substance that's hard enough that you could withstand the slopes, and at a competitive level. So it's a completely different approach to design, using algae in a different way for a function. Here's another product. Does anybody know what this is by looking at it? Mycelium. And I know you're probably hearing a little bit about this so far, but you're right, this is mycelium. And this is the little fibrous structures that extend out of mushrooms underneath the soil or wherever they're growing. You can mix this with other agricultural materials and create very durable, very strong materials that can withstand, if you pack glass in it and drop it, it still protects the glass. But you can also use them as insulation panels. You can use them with additional properties to increase their thermal resistance or bioacoustics, things like that. So here's a desk and a chair that were made entirely out of mycelium. Now, these aren't, they don't look super comfortable, and they're not the sleekest looking things I've ever seen, but this is a product made out of a mushroom fiber and literally nothing else. So let's put that aside for a moment and talk about plastic-eating enzymes. So there's a ton of academic research that's been underway for a long time. Don't worry, I've read all the academic papers, so you don't have to. And there are new bioengineered enzymes that can completely break down plastics and basically result in zero waste. And so if you start connecting some of these dots, what if in the near futures, furnishings, fixtures were actually designed to expire like milk? They were really only meant to last 3 years or 4 years. And when you were done with them, you took them somewhere and you planted them in the ground and they turned into fertilizer. What if design was continual? What if design was circular and continual? Circular meaning circular economy, like sustainable, but also continuous, meaning a designer might reevaluate a space every 24 to 36 months. And then because this type of furnishing and fixtures and everything else is less expensive to produce, that you might have to populate the space differently as people were evolving and workspaces were evolving. What if in the future there was a subscription model for design services? It wasn't like a one and done thing, but designers became a lifelong partner in the space to help that space evolve along with the people in it and the way that the world was changing. So let's put that aside for a moment and talk about food. This could be an American farm in the future. So this thing is called a bioreactor, and basically it's like a giant hot pot, pressure cooker thing. And you start with a little bit of tissue, you put amino acids in it, you control the temperature, and on the other side of it, you get a protein that is molecularly identical to a protein that would have been harvested from a live animal. A lot of people would call this like lab-grown meat, which sounds scary, but ultimately, what's scarier? Meat that is grown outside where maybe there's a lot of hormones and pesticides and random chemicals being used, or meat that's been grown in a totally contained environment, where it's much, much healthier. You could start with 2 grams of cattle tissue using a biopsy that doesn't hurt the cow whatsoever, and in the end, wind up with 250 million kilograms of meat. It's about the size of a pop bottle. And that's it. And you would have that much food to last with everybody. So as crazy as all of this sounds, this is a farm in Singapore. This is not a stock image. This thing is real. It's up and running. It's the largest of its kind in the entire world. And they are in the process of producing meat that people are now eating. This is chicken that was grown in this indoor farm. It's already on sale. You can't tell the difference. From a molecular point of view, it's the same thing as if it had been harvested from an animal. But it never involved a chicken that clucked, at least. This is it. And Singapore, a tiny little island, normally has to import all of the meat that it consumes. This potentially means it becomes a net exporter of that product. So what if meat got produced where it's sold, right, directly to consumers? What might that look like? Well, imagine a grocery store. This is what grocery stores tend to look like today. They tend to be designed with a lot of storage in the back and places for trucks with human drivers to pull up to. But what if, instead, the grocery store starts to produce its own meat using these bioreactors? You would have to reconfigure what this space looks like. And in the back, where these boxes are, maybe that's where the farm is. And maybe it's not just meat, because you can also do a lot of this with produce. So this is a functional indoor farm located in Berlin that is growing a lot of the produce that local grocery stores now use. So it begs the question, if we're synthesizing meat, why stop at chicken? If it doesn't harm the animal at all, would anybody in here eat a panda bear steak? Raise your hand. Seriously? Well, you're not going to like what I'm going to have you show you next. What a cocker spaniel kebab? Anybody? No. Well, guess what else, my friends? Remember back in 1998 when everybody thought nobody would ever walk through an airport carrying all, why would you carry all your luggage and try to get on a plane? That would never happen. All right, so the question I get a lot asked after the accusations that I'm like a crazy person for wanting to eat a cute, fluffy dog is, when will this disrupt our industry? And the answer is it will disrupt every industry, because this is a fundamental different approach to the built environment in every conceivable possible way. We didn't even talk about life extension and healthcare and things like that. But for you, this progress has already started. Everything that I just highlighted in orange directly impacts your future, because it's things like textiles, CPG development, construction and building materials, paints and coatings, living materials. I could go on and on and on. This is one of these signals that I'm sure your industry, like many industries at the moment, is kind of like, this feels like far off future stuff, it's never going to happen, until it does. And suddenly you're like, holy smokes, we weren't ready for it. Okay, so that's the first chunk. For those of you trying to take pictures, don't worry, I've got the presentation in the folder at the end. You're all set. The second set of trends has to do with experiential technologies. And to that, I'd like to ask a question. This is a little blurry, but how many of you played SimCity? Yeah, you're like, yes. Sir, I salute you. So for those of you who are not cool like we are, and don't know what we're talking about, or are too young, in which case, congratulations on having wonderful skin still. The premise is you have to make decisions. So like based on where you physically put your like heavy industrial or your light residential, and the data that you're inputting, the city flourishes or erupts in flames, things like that. And you get to see the results play out. It's super fun. So sim is short for simulated. As an aside, did you play Hot Date? No? Did anybody play Sims Hot Date? Yes, testify, you did in the back. So your sim could be programmed. It can meet with other sims, and you would go out on a date, and then it would just wind up like a lot of dates in the real world end up anyways. All right. So the concept that SimCity was exploring is something called a digital twin. And this is a virtual model that's designed to accurately reflect a physical object. So you can take in real-world data, and do interesting things with it. So this is being used a lot on factory floors. Outfit the entire factory, all of the electronics and machines and things within a factory, scrape all of those data in real time, and then you can understand things like energy consumption, humidity, predictive maintenance. You can understand a lot and make tweaks before you actually make them in the real world. So digital twin, already in use in factories. However, this is where big tech starts to get into play. So this is a brand new kind of system that Amazon just launched, AWS just launched a couple months ago. It's called Twin Maker. And mainly this is now for not just factories, but buildings like the one that we are currently in. And the idea is, can we scrape metadata about the physical built environment in order to learn in real time and make decisions? And Amazon is not the only big company that's working on this. Companies large and small are all now trying to embed sensors in things, try to understand the environment, so again, they can make better decisions and gain insights, whether that's to achieve ESGs or operational efficiencies or other things like that. So what if this actually is the beginning of the end of the analog built environment for real? And maybe we're just not thinking this through. Another area of development in this space is extended reality and spatial computing. So extended reality just bridges the physical and the digital worlds, and spatial computing uses usually the body as an interface, and it makes all of this interactive. So for example, I just talked about digital twins. If you have a digital twin of an organ, like a heart, you could do a lot. Right now, if you go in for cardiac catheterization, which is a pretty common procedure to have, it's better than going in totally blind, but they're really just using a 2D ultrasound, which is like, it's like, again, better than nothing, but still pretty dangerous. What if instead there was a digital twin of a heart, and your heart in particular? So what if a surgeon had a 3D model, was wearing glasses like this, and knew exactly where to make that incision? So this is not a hypothetical what if. This is a pair of Magic Leap glasses, and the FDA is in the process of approving this. So like in a couple years, if you go in for a procedure like that, your surgeon may be wearing a XR headset to do that procedure on you. So surgery today is still pretty analog, even though we've come pretty far. But that's going to change in the future as the doctor becomes more interactive and the environment that they're working in becomes more interactive, and the patient themselves is replicated as a digital twin. All of this is on our near-term horizon for the future. Last week at WWDC, which is Apple's premier event, they launched these ridiculously overpriced ski goggles. And they look really dumb. Tim Cook said that this is the first Apple product ever that you look through rather than at. Put the price point aside for a moment and the fact that literally nobody, except for a handful of people that I know who are whatever, nobody is going to wear this all day long, okay? But again, that's not the point. This is just the beginning of trying to bring a different type of technology to market. And eventually, these ridiculous overpriced ski goggles are going to look a lot more like what I'm wearing on my face, which starts to open up and unlock new opportunities for how you conceptualize a physical space, because the barrier now is gone the way that it is today. So again, if you're taking a longer view, what if this is the beginning of the end of 2D computers? What if, in the future, every space that you design is a computable space that people will be walking into? How does that change how they exist, how they are productive, what their happiness is like when they are in that space? Wearing glasses is one thing, but what happens if the interface is invisible and it's more fluid? So this is a fundamental change that I've seen so far. So this is a former Apple executive who started a company called Humane that created this little device. It's a wearable device that you touch to wake up. And then it's sort of like an AI assistant. And the demo that I saw, it does all kinds of things, from summarizing your emails to giving you answers to things. It's a pretty powerful little tool. It also has a projector and a camera. So this isn't coming to market yet. It's still sort of in a demo stage. But while this person was talking, he got a phone call from his spouse. It was like signaling to him. He held out his hand, and he could see who was calling. And then he answered the phone, and it was his wife, and it was totally pre-recorded and whatever, but the concept was there, right? So again, if I'm now walking around with a device that creates an interface out of everything and anything all the time, suddenly that unlocks new opportunities for me. What if this is the beginning of the end of fixed interfaces and workflows? That changes how you do your work, but again, it starts to influence how people behave in different places. I'm originally from Chicago. Anybody in here from Chicago originally? So I'm from Northwest Indiana, but let's not tell anybody. So the food that this region is famous for is pizza. This is the local, I was home visiting some folks, family members. This is the grocery aisle this is the pizza aisle at my grocery store. I'm not gonna play the entire thing for you because it just keeps going. It's very, very, very long. All of this is pizza. Totally different brands of pizza, frozen. Okay, so let's say that I settle on this pizza and should I eat it? I've got lactose intolerance. Is this a good thing for me? So I hold the pizza box out in front of my little digital thing, right? And maybe it's like, hey, you just told me you're lactose intolerant. It's got 2.5 feet of cheese. So like, maybe don't eat this. What is wrong with you for even asking me? What this tells us is talking is very much going to be the new typing. And if we are talking more than we are typing, then there's additional data that can be gathered. All of the big tech companies, from Amazon to Google and many small companies too, are working on recognizing who we are as well as what we are in real time. As we talk more, there's a bunch of information that can be gleaned from the voice. Do you have early onset Parkinson's disease that hasn't been diagnosed yet? That's one thing that you could do. It's not perfect, but you could at least get some information. Are you sick? Are you depressed? What is it about who you are right now in the moment is possible now? So what if designers had the ability to run simulations of people in places before a final design was confirmed? If you had a simulation of a building and you had data from a community that was going to be there, ethically sourced, of course, but you were using these sources of data inputs, you could query in advance, we want people to be happier here. We want people to be more productive here. We want people to feel included here. You could actually simulate that in advance and then design not just to the building specifications, but to the human specifications of the people in the space. I think you could think of this as sort of next generation building information modeling. All right, the last area here is very, very short, and that is generative AI and AI itself. So you've been hearing a lot about this. Here's all you really need to know. AI is on a very long horizon trajectory, the origins of which go back 400 years for real, and the final development of which will still take a very, very long time. In 2017, some Google researchers published a paper called Attention is All You Need. This introduced a different architecture concept called a transformer. And this transformer model is predicated on large language models, LLMs. It's a tool that can ingest and generate information. And basically, once you have a corpus, a big, huge library of data, you can study that, look for sequential patterns, and then produce something on the other end. Therefore, the T in ChatGPT stands for transformer. Okay, and then the ChatGPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Here's why I want you to understand where some of this is coming from, because it feels very magical right now. It's not. It's also not a panacea, but it is part of something that again, is connected to something else on the horizon, and that thing is generalist AI. So the next models, the dark spots right now, that's sort of ChatGPT. This is the bigger picture. And the bigger picture are models like this one called Gato, which is from DeepMind, which have the ability to learn and do many different things at once, whether that's generate a paragraph of text or operate a robot arm. Okay, so that's what's on the horizon. So what if AI could help you solve problems using conversation as well as computation, not as a replacement, but as a co-pilot? Instead, I don't see that approach in your community. Some of the approach that I'm seeing is something that's more like this. So do you remember at the very beginning when I showed you the you have influence? Here's a hospital room. Here's an office space. So I designed those using these tools, and I'm going to show you how I did it. So I used generative AI. This is ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT to create a prompt that I could put into an image generation system. The prompt is tiny at the top, but basically it's like, write a prompt for a generative AI system to render an image of a modern, super comfortable hospital room that promotes good mental health and well-being and helps patients feel calm and protected. And it spit out all this. This is a very long prompt, which I then copied and pasted into Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. So that I used those tools to create this. I did it over and over again. I changed the prompts over and over again. And guess what? I got some flavor of this over and over and over again. Same deal. When I asked for the super sleek modern office, I introduced variables. I changed the text around. It's some flavor of this. I did not find this as a surprise. And that's because at the moment, these systems are designed to accomplish a goal. They're not designed to come up with the craziest ideas anybody's ever heard of. And also, the corpus is pretty limited. So it's a fairly homogeneous group of people who built these things. And they did not include people like you. Okay? And let me just drive home the point, and then I promise you I will end. But I typed into Midjourney, imagine CEO of a large company. Okay? And this is what I got. All right? So, but this is, okay, but yes, that sucks. But also, statistically speaking, the majority of Fortune 500 CEOs are white men. So this should not be a surprise. So let's try a mid-sized company. CEO of a mid-sized company, same thing, but now two bald guys and a cartoon. How about the CEO of a startup? That's going to be different, right? Yes. Nope. Nope. Now they just wear glasses. Okay, so I decided to pull in census data. Where in the United States are all the women? It's like, which town in America has the highest concentration of women? It turns out it's Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi is the highest concentration of women in any of the largest 50 metros. So, is everybody ready? Say it with me. CEO of a company in Jackson, Mississippi. But we finally got some people of color. All right, so I tried something different, totally different approach. How about the CEO of a company that makes tampons? Are you ready? I don't know if you are. There we go. Yes, yes. That looks like a tampon. Ladies? Okay. Do you know what I find more terrifying than the killer AI robots I'm being told right now to fear? It's AI-centered design. Yeah, you matter. You matter, because this is the moment, this is the shift, this is the transition, that we move from fiction into reality. And I need you to start tracking these signals. This is not a keynote speech where everybody's going to go along their way. We had an agreement at the beginning. You promised me that going forward, you were going to start tracking these signals. You were going to start asking what if. And you were going to be thinking about how we build the futures. I showed you some trend clusters using that model. And here are your takeaways from the session. I need you to get past the hype and extremes. There's a lot more that you should be focusing on, especially when it comes to generative AI. I want you to practice reperception, that cow. Remember it and practice it over and over. The trends alone aren't what matter. It's the convergences between those trends that create the next things that are coming. So always have your eye on what's next. And finally, learn and use the tools of futurists. To that end, here's your digital swag bag. And Cheryl, maybe you want to come on up? So everything that I just showed you is in here. The presentation, I just have a JPEG of that cow on its own. I'm very serious. I want you to start using this stuff. Because it's great if you walk away inspired, but if you walk away inspired without taking action, then I didn't accomplish what I came here to do today. Okay? You have to get into the habit of asking what if now, so that you never need to ask now what in the future. All right? Thank you.